Right. Okay. So welcome, and especially welcome to any newcomers we have amongst us. That's just great. And don't worry, as I said, because I repeat things a lot, and I record all this stuff as well and send you out the links to the recording, so you have a chance to listen to it all again till you're blue in the face. So please don't worry if there's anything that is not immediately obvious to you. Mute your mics when we right now. How to see somebody's just come in now, and I can't see them when I have the share up. Sorry, I'll just have to stop the share for a second. Right. So anyone else who doesn't show up now, I think we'll just have to leave. Right. Yeah, it's funny that I can't see the waiting list while I'm on the screen. Maybe that's something I don't understand, but okay, we're back on the screen share. Yeah. Okay. So as I mention each time, it's certainly all of this type of work fits well within the description of continuing professional development on the HGI website. So first things first. So I came up with this idea. I don't know how successful it's been, that in advance I would provide people with a link to write in any questions that they might have. So it gave people the opportunity to think in advance of the session. It comes up there. There we go. Good, that's better. And some people did that, and that's great. So we're going to address those questions. But after I've finished addressing those questions, I will then deal with any other questions that you have out there amongst you. Okay. So the first question, there was a few questions about verification and another question about viewing item responses on the chart. So I'm going to deal with those straight away. So how I'm going to do that is jump across here to an example. So this is me logged in. I've just created an example, me logged in as myself as a therapist. And I want to show this process, and then we'll open the mics up then, and anyone can ask me anything about it. So let me explain first of all the thinking behind verification. So the purpose of verification is to abide by GDPR rules and regulations about privacy and confidentiality matters. So the idea is that in order to be sure that Pragmatic Tracker is communicating correctly with your client, you need to verify. If you're using SMS, you need to verify their phone number. And if you're using email for reminders and links, you need to verify their email address. So the idea is to send a message straight out of Pragmatic Tracker to their phone and or email address and have them confirm that it is indeed them who you are communicating with. So you'll know that now, because we use an international system, you've got to put in the international format. I'm just using my own here. And my email address. And you see the two ticks are red. Now, let's hope that you'll hear this. So when I hover over that, it says, click to send verification text message. Click. Verification test message was sent. Bing, you heard it on my phone. I can now tick the little square box and this turns green. Email, hover, tick. Verification email was sent. Where's my camera? You can't see it, but I assure you it's there. So this is to confirm I've captured your email address correctly. If expecting it, please let me know that you've received it. If not, ignore it. Now, here's the point. The single easiest way to verify email and or phone number is to do it while you're actually in communication with the client. So you use the client on the phone, you've entered them in Pragmatic Tracker while you're making the appointment, and you verify them. That is the easiest way to do it, because then I can say, if I'm the client, yes, I received the text, yes, I received the email, and the therapist then can go and tick the box. Now, I fully appreciate that that's not always going to be possible. So the messages that go out ask the client to send a message back to say that this is the case. Now, in the case of email, this is fine, because now, since we did that update last week before last, or last week, whatever it was, any communication from the client through Pragmatic Tracker back will come straight into your email. Now, one important point about this that I just want to emphasize, there may be some of you who perhaps used your personal email in Pragmatic Tracker in your user profile. But if you have a work email address, that's the one that should be in your user profile. So that's your profile. I'll show you how to change that in a second, because anytime a client replies through Pragmatic Tracker, it's going to come through straight to you. And that would be, let's say, to confirm that, yes, it was indeed me, that I got that message from you. Now, it doesn't work with SMS. With SMS, you can't reply to the SMS button. I see your hand up, Lauren. I'll come to you in just a sec. So that is how you verify. Now, I want to show you, though, a little workaround as well. I'm just taking these back out of here a second. I'll just show you with the email, because it applies with the it applies with the text as well. So there's the address in there. Now, as you can see at the moment, there's no little square box, right? But if I save this record and I return to profile again, the little square is there. So if you're absolutely 100% confident that you definitely know the correct email address and or phone number for the client, you can verify them without actually having to send out that verification message. But you must be 100% confident, and you've got to take responsibility for that. The best practice way really is to send a message out from the system itself. I'm just going to stop the share so I can answer Lauren's question first of all, and then any others. Lauren.
Yeah, Bill, I've got a couple of questions. On the email address bit, is there a way you can change the message that goes out to the client, or is it a standard message that you can't change?
Yeah, it's a standard message. Yeah, it's taken us a long time to come up with some words that are reasonable for it. So no, you can't. Sorry. The one place, the place you can change in your own profile. Yeah, you're talking about the verification message now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you can't change the verification message.
Okay.
You're stuck with that, I'm afraid. However, and the second. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, go on. Second one.
No, and I've got a second question. I've got a client in Greece. If I put a Greek telephone number in there, does that mean that you'll end up spending a lot on texts to send it to Greece?
No, as long as you put in the international code, it'll still be 3p as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
And who pays that? Do you pay that, or do we pay that?
Well, what happens is PTSD Resolution pay it. So the account is registered through PTSD Resolution, the Twilio account, and any new members any people who sign up, I explain to them all about the SMS process, and I make guidelines for recommended contribution to PTSD Resolution at the beginning of December in the time of the big give.
Okay, but this isn't a resolution client. This is my own client.
No, it doesn't matter. The PTSD Resolution underwrite the license for HGI. Yeah.
Jolly generous of PTSD
very
resolution.
Very generous, and that's why I ask people to dip into your pockets on the 1st of December and help them out as well. You know, that if the day ever comes when enough doesn't come in from HGI, then there'll be trouble. But yeah, that's it. Now, one thing though, you brought my attention to. Let me just go back to screen share again. Right. So this business of making sure you've got your work email address in here. Up in the top left corner, it says, hello, Bill A. That's how you access your user profile. There's my email address in there. If I want that to be a different work email address, that's where I change it. Now, related to Lauren's point, you can personalize your generic message that goes out to your clients. You can't do it client by client, but you can do it overall. So if you prefer to change the wording that comes out, you can change it here in your user profile. That's to personalize your email message relating to outcome measures and your message relating to the session that they've been in to get feedback from them. Let me just unshare again and see if there's any more questions. Any more hands up about any of that? I probably can't see all. Oh, there's a second page. Hang on, let me go over here. Right.
If you go to the participants box at the bottom, you can see a list of participants, and then you can put your hand up in case you don't know how to do it.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, good. So that's that point. Now the third, the next question was from Liz Kovar. I think you're here today, Liz. Are you? Maybe not. Hopefully. Right. So this question was relating to Liz wanted to know. Here are my questions here. I'd like to compare the scores of specific questions on the measures week on week, not just the overall score. How panicked, unhappy, anxious, etc., etc. So this is really easy. So let me go to a client here. I know this is actually a closed case of mine that I opened to show you how to close in a second. But okay, so here we have this client record. So click on charts. Now you can see with this client, I used different measures here. Was this the client? No, sorry, it's a different one I wanted to show you. This one, right? So I just click on charts. Yeah, so I used 4 different measures. I used a feedback measure, the blue line at the top, and then I used core, ORS, and PRN14. So sure enough, I can see the total scores and I can see the clients improving. But supposing I want to see what's going on an individual measure. Well, when I hover on it, I can see the scoring point. But when I click on it, what happens is it drops down below. So this is the core 10 on the 1st of April. And I can see here 3 different columns, right? The column most on the right is today's response. So when the clients filled in that measure is today. The score first to the left is the previous day's response. And the one second to the left is the first time they came in. So if you look at, let me just change the chart control. This is how you change. Over here, because we're looking at several measures together, the y-axis goes from 0 to 100. But watch what happens now when I change to just one measure, the core 10. The y-axis now changes 0 to 40, which is correct for the measure. Green is at the bottom because they're improving with progress as they come down in score. And if I now click on the scoring point here again, if you go back here, here's the first score, right? I can hover on it, it was 17. So sure enough, the total score is 17. Previous to this one is 9, it's here. And previous to this one is 12, which is here. But of course, I'm also seeing all the scoring points. So the concept of this, which actually came from a human givens therapist, it was a request from a human givens therapist, was exactly Liz's point, that in discussion with the client, I want to be able to see not just where they are today, but where they've come from, not just on the overall measure itself, but on every item of the measure as well. So it informs my discussion with the client. I was able to cope when things went wrong. Well, this was occasionally. You need to know, obviously, that the higher the number, the more distressed you are with core. So 4 is the most distressed you can be. 3 is very distressed. 1 is obviously getting to a better place. So I was able to cope when things went wrong, went from occasionally to most of the time. So you're able to weave that then into your conversation with your client. So I hope that makes sense. Now, you can look at more than one measure together as well. So you can look at all, or you can look at 1 or 2 or 3. You can see with the PRN14, I used it at time 1 and time 2. This, by the way, is a typical configuration of how I work with clients. PRN14, time 1 and at the end, and core 10 and ORS session by session. and you can see the relationship between the outcome measures. When you want to look at one on its own, you can just choose it there and look at the responses down the bottom. You notice with ORS, the green is at the top because ORS goes up with improvement. Okay, so I'll just jump back to the stop the share and see if there's any issues about any of that, or is that clear to everybody?
Bill, I am here. It's
yeah,
Liz.
hi Liz, great.
Thank
that
you
was
very much.
Does that answer it for you? Okay, yeah?
Yeah, no, it really does. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great, fantastic. Anyone else got any points they want to raise with me at this point? You're all good. Fantastic. Okay. So let's go back over here to my presentation. And right. So submitted questions, verification, viewing item responses. Any other outstanding issues or concerns? Right. I'll just stop again, check in. No hands up. Go back to page 1 here. Okay, good. So we'll carry on. It's a bit of a carry on, jumping around from. Right. Am I shared with you again? Lauren, nod if you can see the screen, can you? Yeah, okay, okay. Right. New features since last month. Aha. Now, last month, in one of these meetings, somebody said it would be good if you could capture whether the session was actually a Zoom session, for example, or a face-to-face or whatever. So I'm going to show you what we did. We had it done actually within 24 hours, I think. And then we've come up with a new one for you. And this is fresh out of the cooker today. In fact, we made a final modification just half an hour before it came on here. So I want to show you that. So let me just come back to Pragmatic Tracker. Right. So if I go to this example here, that'll do fine. Right. So in a session now, you have some new stuff here. So you've got delivery mode. So this is face-to-face, video, phone, or walk and talk. They were the ones that were requested. So now you can capture what sort of an engagement you had with the client.
Bill, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. And so quick and responsive. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Thank you. Now, the next idea we had was, which I'm going to come on to a bit more about in a minute, which is about capturing interventions. Now, this is, as I say, it's a freshly baked cake, and it's not to say that the recipe is perfect yet. And I'll be really pleased if you take a look at this over the next couple of weeks to provide me with some feedback. The place I'd like you to dump any feedback about this to make my life easy, because what I want to try to avoid is masses of emails, is that link I sent out to the questions. There's another tab down here called HG Interventions. And this is where I've been messing about gathering this, right? So far, this is the list we've got, which we've put in. So I asked some colleagues to feedback. Others of you, more of you may have some other ideas. In fact, just at 3:45 today, somebody said affect bridge, which actually I'd missed off by accident. So that's in the list now. Now, the way I've done it is this, and I'll tell you why. So you can see there's a difference between these two drop downs and the last drop down. With this drop down, you can choose more than one option. So for example, supposing I did 7-11 breathing, but at the same time, I included it with some guided imagery. I did it as a precursor to guided imagery. For example, I can hold my finger on a Mac computer. It's on the command. I think it's control on a PC, and I can click that and then hold my finger down, scroll down to guided imagery, for example, and let's say I've done a My Friend John story. Now I've captured those three together because they're related to each other. This is the way I'm thinking about this. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way it needs to ultimately be, but just bear with me. But we separated it out into 3 interventions because you could do it as my friend John in the first one, 7-Eleven in the second one, and there's the drop down in the third. The thing about the third one is that you can go, you've got an option other, and you can write something in, but you don't have that option with the others. So if there's something you wanted to capture that didn't fall into any of those categories and you wanted to put it in here, you can populate it in the last box there. But in the last box, you can only choose one item. Now, you might feed back to me whether in fact it's just too clumsy trying to tick more than one, and you're happy to capture a maximum of 3 interventions in any one therapy session. Let's say the 3 most important things you feel you've done. And you might be happier to have all 3 boxes the same. The reason we've done it with all 3 anyway is because in terms of exporting data into reports, it's actually much easier to manage the data if they're in separate boxes. Otherwise, you've got comma separated values inside the same box. So it's just easier from a reporting point of view. So this is, as I say, hot off the press, straight out of the oven. And I'll be very glad to have any feedback from you about that. Play around with it and see what you think. I'll explain in the rest of my presentation why I think this stuff is important. So any immediate response to that, or questions or comments about it? Anything strikes anybody?
I think that's all really, really useful, what you've done. So brilliant again. Thank you.
Okay, good, great. That's fine. Right, so back to where we are. I'll get better at this jumping around here. Right, okay. I got it, yeah. Lauren, Lauren, you always seem to be on my screen, so I'm relying on you to give me a thumbs up if you could see it, yeah? So last month, we were talking about how working with Pragmatic Tracker and outcome-informed practice measures, etc., helps you in the work you're doing with your actual clients. And you know, some of these points were like being aware of the progress you're making with your clients. I think is very important to generate a sort of reflective practice in yourself. It's almost like, as one person described me one time, self-supervision, where you're sort of checking in with yourself about your progress, wondering about the cases that have gone well, curious about the ones that are not progressing like you want to do. Maybe it's something you want to bring up in a peer group. Maybe it's something you bring to supervision to get some ideas. And particularly important to identify failing cases. Now, obviously, we all love to see great progress with our clients, but we all know perfectly well, and I certainly know from looking at data, thousands of clients, it is rose-tinted glasses that believes you're going to help everybody all the time. That's just simply not going to happen. If you can do 3 out of 4, you're doing really, really well. There's always going to be the 4th. And it's always interesting to think about, well, what else could there be? What other possibilities might there be that might actually help that client that didn't do so well? Understanding patterns in your data, etc. And this notion of deliberate practice, the first step of deliberate practice is to measure where you are now. Unless you know where you're doing now with your clients, you don't know where there is for you to get to. So that's, you know, we were sort of talking about all that stuff last week. But tonight, I wanted to talk more about some ideas around how this sort of work helps your organization. Now, in our case, this is the Human Givens Institute, and the ideas of Human Givens going forward out into the world, if you like. Now, first thing to say is, you have already collectively, and some of you have been on this journey with me for many, many a long year, have already done a huge amount. So going right back to this paper over here with Gina Johnson down in Luton, what seems like 100 years ago now. This was the very first peer-reviewed publication on human givens therapy. 124 clients. We measured every client, every session. Nobody was allowed to escape. And so we had a very, we had great confidence in the results that we obtained in the study. This then went on to the 5-year study, was obviously 5 more years of data, no longer 124 clients, now 3,500 clients. And We've then since moved on. The most recent paper published was an independent publication of PTSD resolution data by Burdett and Greenberg in, I can't read the year, but a few years ago. And none of this could have happened without you guys. So it's your collective will and choice to actually participate in the measuring of what you're doing routinely, client by client by client. That's so important and so valuable to your organization, as well as all the benefits to yourself. And as a result of that, some of you might have seen this before. This is PTSD resolution data. We're able to look at fairly large numbers of clients, 1,695 clients here measured with CORE. All I want to say, I'll be talking about this stuff on one of these other sessions another time. The main point to make is there's a diagonal line running from bottom left to top right. If you're to the right side of that diagonal line, that's good news. If you're to the left side of it, it's not so good news. Thankfully, there's a hell of a lot more dots on the right side than there are on the left side. And exactly the same thing with the impact of event scale, a trauma-focused measure with PTSD resolution, over 1,000 clients. None of these stories would be possible without your contribution to this. Same story with PRN 14. Fantastic. Now, the first point I want to make is a really simple point. Data analysis always takes place on closed cases. So when you've got a client who's open in treatment with you at the moment, they can't be included when you're working towards trying to publish or even broadcast any sort of information, because obviously you don't know what stage that client is at. They might be early in treatment, you might be waiting for them to come back after a period of time or whatever like that. But my hand goes up here. I'm as guilty as everybody else. And of course, what did I do today? I went in and I closed out cases that I haven't closed out. And I just want to review that process with you. It's ever so simple. You go to the client profile and you close the case. So these are cases that are languishing in your open list that really shouldn't be there. You haven't seen the client for a few months. You don't know what, maybe they dropped out of treatment, or maybe you just forgot to close them or whatever like that. And you simply go to profile and go over and choose the type of ending. Was it planned or unplanned? Planned is where it's agreed with you, where you agreed together with the client, yeah, we're done. Unplanned is you thought they were going to come back for another one, they canceled the appointment or whatever, or they dropped out of treatment or whatever like that. And you simply close the case, because data analysis can't be carried out unless the cases are closed. I'm just going to jump out to here a second and just show you that. I actually reopened a few of my own cases just to show you. So profile, planned, close. It's that simple. Go back to my open. You can see they're moving across these. This was also planned. And there's one more. This was unplanned. So unplanned, close. So that's that point. I'll just stop to share. Keep an eye on you guys. Everyone all right with that? Great. Okay.
Bill.
Yeah.
It might
Andrew.
be worth saying that the setup for PTSD resolution is slightly different from the private client, the other clients, because they input a lot of the information already when you receive the client.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
well,
but
if you're a new practitioner, you'll get different screens coming up.
Well, you get the screening. The screening is done by PTSD resolution.
Yeah.
But when it comes to closing the case, though,
yeah, it's the same. Yeah,
it's the same thing. That's the point I'm making at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah. Okay. Screen share back again. Right.
And Bill, just to say,
yeah.
Bill, you've got some questions in the chat.
Oh, have I? Okay. Do you want someone to
and someone's just to back you up, someone's asking if you've closed an unplanned client, do you reset them up? Do you reopen, or do you if they
very good question.
start again?
So if you've close the case, and then let, you know, out of the blue, they phone you up again, or they'll pitch back in again after a few weeks or whatever like that, you can just go back and reopen the case, go to exactly the same place in your closed list profile and reopen the case like that. However, if more than a reasonable amount of time has gone by, and by a reasonable amount of time, I would mean 2 months, 3 months, something like that, it makes more sense to start fresh, really, because that was a piece of work. That was what we would describe as an episode of work. And now you're having a new episode. So I would suggest starting again. You can always give the client label, let's say whatever the name of the client was. If you give them exact same name and just go -EP2, they will come up on your client list next to each other because of alphabetical order, but you'll see you're on episode 2. But of course, well, the other one will have been closed anyway, won't it? So yeah, forget about that. You know what I mean. Great question. Anything else in that chat? I can look in there myself, I suppose.
Yeah, someone's asking the references to the papers. I've just put the PTSD resolution paper up. I think it's about 2018, which we did that, the Burdett Greenberg
Oh,
one.
yeah.
But actually, the Human Givens website cites the 5-year study, but all the links are broken.
Right. If somebody wants that, just email me. I'll send you the papers. No problem.
Yeah. So I've put the PTSD resolution.
Oh, that's great.
up.
Thanks, Lauren. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Screen share.
Bill, on that scattergraph.
Scattergraph. Yeah.
That thing that says Cohen thingy and something, some other name. That new? Because I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, it is new, and I'm not going to get into it now because we're going to do another whole session all about that another time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right. So we're back on the screen share, hopefully. Right. So that's the now. Okay. So I'm actually that most recent paper by Burdett and Greenberg. What I'm moving on to here look at is the limitations. Now, anyone who writes an academic paper, they always write at the end what the limitations are, what's crap about the research, basically, to point the way for what should be done in the future. So, and they always have to lace these things full of caveats and tentative language and all the rest of it. This is typical, right? You're good, but you're not that good. You're crap because you didn't do this, that, and the other, right? So this study is an evaluation of existing services rather than a controlled trial. Oh, we haven't got an RCT, and hence no comparisons with a control group, whether waiting list or alternative treatment. Long-term follow-up is also unavailable. So any remission or reliable change cannot be assumed to persist. So basically, this is an age-old problem in the whole field of psychotherapy. Getting long-term follow-up is hugely problematic. Most IAP services have very, very poor follow-up service as well. PTSD resolution is really trying to do something about this now, and has somebody actually employed with the particular focus of following up on cases 3 months, 6 months later, trying to find out about the sustainability of the treatment. So that's being managed. But here's something else. The core measure used is not one which is commonly used in studies of PTSD or other mental health difficulties, making it difficult to perform comparisons with other literature. Thus, comparisons with IAPT data, improving access to psychological therapies, including those involving recovery and reliable improvement, cannot be made directly. All right, so here's the point. The core measure that's been our sort of bedrock measure over many, many years is not the measure that's typically used in IAPT, and it's not the measure they use regarded for, like, particularly for measuring PTSD, although we use the impact of event scale. So how do you find out? Well, what does IAPT do? Well, if you Google IAPT, you'll find yourself here on the Adult Improving Access to Psychological Therapies program, where you can read copious amounts of literature to bore yourself to sleep about what they do. But here's the point. The Improving Access to Psychological Therapies manual highlights the measures that they do use. And the two measures that are the sort of benchmark measures for for IAP services in the country are PHQ-9 and GAD-7. PHQ-9 measures depression, GAD-7 measures anxiety. There's one more measure as well for PTSD called the PCL5. Now, we, of course, and I have been saying this for the last N years, a combination of PRN14, Core 10, impact of event scale when there's trauma as really good sessional measures to use with your clients. PRN14 maybe beginning and end. If we were to have the aspiration of gathering data that is suitable to allow comparison of our data properly directly with IAPT, we would alternatively, instead of the one Core 10 measure, use PHQ-9 and GAD-7. So 9 and 7, 16 questions instead of 10. You still do have a risk question. The last one, you can't really read it there in the PHQ-9. I thought I'd be better off hurting myself, dead, or hurting myself in some way. So you still have a risk item on the PHQ-9. Instead of the impact of event scale, if we wanted to have data to allow direct comparison with IAP data, we would use the PCL5. PCL5 has 20 items. The IES has 15 items. They're pretty similar. PCL5, all of these measures are in Pragmatic Tracker. So tip number 2. So tip number 1 was closure cases. Tip number 2 is consider, and I'm putting this out there to you because we're working in the direction of trying to do a time-limited study where N number of therapists in both HGI and PTSD resolution will see X number of clients over a given period of time to produce a certain data set, right? But in order for therapists to get their heads around this, they need to sort of get exposure to it and practice with it. So I am literally putting this out there to you guys, and there may be some amongst you who would be willing to just even have a play with this with a few clients and see how you got on. See if it wasn't too bitter a pill to swallow when you have your already existing honed practice that you've been doing over and over again, driven into by me, of course, for the last 12 years. So here I am saying, you know, look, if we genuinely want to have a data set that allows a head-to-head comparison with IAP data, then we need data in the form of PHQ-9 and GAD-7 instead of Core 10. Or, I mean, as well as Core 10, but that's another subject. I won't get into that for now. So I've put in tip number 3 here, consider using PCL5 as an alternative to the impact of event scale. Right, I'm going to just come out and keep an eye on you guys now because see what sort of controversies I'm letting loose here. Have we got any burning questions? No, everything's quiet. Okay, I'll take that as a good sign. Right, let's go back. Now, the next point. So we've had 3 tips so far. Tip 1, close your cases. And anyone can do that. Obviously, that's great help. So please do that. Let me encourage. It's very good housekeeping to do that anyway, to keep an eye on your list and who's in it and who shouldn't be in it. Tip number 2, consider using GAD-7 and PHQ-9 in your routine work. Tip number 3, in trauma cases, use PCL5 as an alternative to the impact of event scale. Now, another criticism in the Burdett and Greenberg paper was we were unable to determine how long clients had been experiencing their symptoms and could not thus ascertain how much improvement in symptoms might have been related to expected resolution of distress as a result of singular stressors like relationship breakdown or whatever like that. So the point is, there wasn't enough information about the chronicity of the problems. Were these recent onset problems in the last 6 months, relationship breakdown relationship gets sorted out, the problems resolved, or are they of a much more chronic nature, 5 years or longer lasting, flashbacks or all the rest of it. Now we know perfectly well the chances are that most of the problems of PTSD resolution clients are indeed long lasting, but it wasn't captured. And so this brings me on to my next tip. So we have a really, really simple way of doing that. And it's using the problems feature within Pragmatic Tracker, but not to the full extent that is designed to be used. So I've talked about the problems feature before, and I will be doing again when I'm talking about goals at the next session, which will be the theme for the next session. But this is using it in just a slightly different way, which is really easy for you. So you've got a client, comes in, first appointment, and you're writing their notes up. And in the process of your discovery with your client, you'll have established what the key areas are that you're trying to work on. And the standard thing you probably already naturally ask anyway is, how long has this been going on for? How long have you been having these bad sleep patterns or nightmares? Or how long has the relationship been broken down for? How long have you had trouble with alcohol or whatever it might be? In the section in Pragmatic Tracker labeled problems, you simply go to add new problem. You give it a label. I'll just give you an example here. Poor sleep, wake in the middle of the night, can't drop off again, going on for 1 to 5 years. You're done. That's it. That's problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, problem 4, whatever it is. That you're done. Now, I'm not talking about here. It's another step to think about measuring the change in those problems as identified by the client, right? And we will talk about that later. But this is real easy to do. It only dawned on me the other day how straightforward this is actually to do in Pragmatic Tracker, because it's right there. In fact, to just prove my point, I'm going to jump out to it and go to that open pretend case there. So, you know, I've been in that session with the client, and I go problems, add problem, can't sleep, detail, some detail, how long. Now, this is the critically important thing, how long it's been going on for, right? Because that tells us about the chronicity of the problem, because you will often get spontaneous resolution of problems that are less than 3 months or 3 months to a year, but problems of 1 to 5 years or 5 to 10 years are obviously far more chronic in nature. So you can see how simple this is to do. Create, another problem, bang, create, right? It's a 2-second job. Well, okay, 10-second job, 20 seconds maybe, but you can see it's pretty easy to do. And that would allow us to capture very, very rich data that would answer that criticism, if you know what I mean. Okay, so go back to my presentation. So that's just showing you that there. So tip number 4, consider using the problems tab to record the problem type and duration. Now, I would recommend, in preparation for the next month's thing I'm going to talk about, is to make sure the language that you use in here is like as though the client wrote it, right? It's in the first person. It's not client says that, because later on, if you go on to use it to actually measure what the client now thinks about those problems, it'll be presented to them like an outcome measure, and it needs to be in their own language. So just keep it sort of in the first person, or in sort of no person. Problem sleeping, can't sleep, wake up early, can't drop back off again, whatever it might be. Now, regardless of whether you go for tips 2 and 3 about GAD-7 and PHQ-9, I would really encourage everybody to do this anyway, because it makes sense, because you have a quick way of going to one place to look at all the problems the client was talking about in any case. So I would really, really encourage you to do that regardless. Tip number 4. So here's the thing. In jumping across to HGI data now, this is core data in the HGI site, right? So these are closed cases in the HGI site, 700 clients measured with core, Andrew, I'll tell you all about this effect size another time. Suffice to know, there's a lot more dots down here on the bottom right than in the top left area. Okay, so really nice. Now, what I was very pleasantly surprised to find out is some of you, because I have been making this point for some time to new people coming along saying, you know, if you want data to be able to influence your own data, to go to your local GP to say, look, you know, this is the results we're getting with our clients. The GPs understand PHQ-9 and GAD7 a lot better than Core 10. So I've been encouraging people to do that. And lo and behold, there are 200 clients in the HGI site in the closed cases list with GAD7 data, sorry, PHQ-9 data, and mighty fine it is too, with a large effect size. Again, most of the dots down here on the right side. And GAD7 is even better. Anxiety measure over 500 cases, right? With 1.03 large effect size, most of the dots to the right of the dotted line. So really, really good. So some of you guys out there, I don't even know who you are, have been doing this anyway. So I would just, you know, this is going back to the tips 2 and 3, having GAD7 PHQ-9 data, even for a period of time over the next 6 months or 12 months, would allow a body of data to be gathered that would really allow us to say something powerful about comparison with IAP data. Now, I just make the point here that, you know, no matter what we do, we will be criticized, because people will say, yeah, yes, but yeah, I call them the yes butters, right? They'll say, yeah, all well and good. All you middle-class people are out there treating wealthy people who've got the money to put their hands in their pockets for treatment, right? Well, clearly and obviously, that is simply not true about PTSD resolution. PTSD resolution is a charity. It's free at the point of delivery. Nobody, none of the clients pay anything for it whatsoever, and there's no cherry picking of data. I mean, it goes without saying, and I mean, to any of us ethically within ourselves, there is absolutely 0 point. It's a bit like, you know, I play golf a bit sometimes, and it's a bit like people cheating on the golf course. You know, who are they kidding? I mean, there's just no point. There's no point in cherry picking your results. You're not going to learn anything. You're going to learn more. I would put it to you, you're going to learn more from your failing cases than the cases that actually you're successful with. This is the real of learning takes place. And the real place that Human Givens as an institute and an organization, as a training college, can learn is actually to find out, not when Human Givens therapy works, but when it doesn't work. Where are the clients that are struggling? That it's just, you're not getting the, you know, it's just not doing what it says on the tin for. That's how as an organization, it can mature and develop and learn and grow. So it goes without saying that there's just simply no point in cherry picking the results that you put in. But nevertheless, that criticism will be there. However, I still think that we can go a long way. And if we design a tight protocol where therapists sign up and say, right, I will commit for the X number of months that all of the clients I see, I'll measure them with GAD7, PHQ-9, PCL5 if they've got trauma over a period of time, and we gather data on 300 cases at 150 in PTSD res and 150 in HGI, that we'll really have a story to tell. Now, how am I doing? 1821. Tip number 5, and this comes from Julie, who is in our audience. So Julie, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and just see where you are. Can you pipe up there for a minute for me and tell me where this came from?
Okay, so as part of the promotions group, we're getting feedback from, I was in Jennifer Broadley's course on how to set up in private practice. And one of the things that she promotes is that we get testimonials from our clients so that we can put them on our website. And one of the biggest things that she said is probably 90% or more of our clients come from referral. And looking at the marketing out there. There's some of the information that's come back from the Scope project and the PSA is that the clients themselves, really don't care about our organisation, they don't care about our qualifications. What they care about is, can they help us? And they get their recommendations from their friends and their families and from people that they trust. And especially people who have had trauma and things, they don't necessarily trust organisations. So my question to Bill is can we actually put a place on Pragmatic Tracker to collect testimonials rather than just emails, so that it's all in one place and it's part of the process that they're used to, because they're used to doing surveys and it just pops up the same. So that's how it came about.
Thank you very much, Julie. So Julie, when did we have our meeting? Last Friday, was it?
Yes, Friday.
Last Friday. Okay.
Bill is so quick.
So we had our meeting last Friday, and by Monday we had the testimonial. So this now again, this is in early stages, right? So the concept here is so you do a course of treatment with your client, you get to the end of the course of treatment, and you feel, I'd like to invite the client to fill in a testimonial. Now you've had them used to filling in outcome measures and maybe feedback if you're using feedback as well. This is just one more small thing you're asking them to do. Would you mind at the end of that appointment that I send you another feedback measure, which is a testimonial, in fact, right? Now that will then be captured inside and stored obviously inside Pragmatic Tracker, but you will know that it's there because you'll have had a message from Pragmatic Tracker when they've completed it. And so you'll know it's there. And at some point, I mean, first of all, you can copy and paste from it to use, as Julie's talking about, on your own website and everything like that. But it would be a way of linking the client words about their experience of therapy with you. And in a beautiful way, of course, if you have the outcome data that goes along in parallel with this, so you're able to show change on the different measures and all the rest of it, but you're sort of unpacking the story, if you like, of that client experience. Now, this is highly experimental. We're the wet edge of the paintbrush here. And this maybe won't be for everybody, but many of you might be interested in this. And if you are, I need to think of I don't want to get 40 emails. I need to think of an easy way. I'll come up with an easy way of you telling me. So it probably goes into that shared sheet. So it would all gather in the one place in there. What I might actually do is put in the current wording into that sheet. Let me just explain what I mean. So in here, this link to this place where the questions go. I can have as many tabs as I want here. There can be one about the testimonials, just to get a little bit, maybe Julie, I can work with you a little bit on that to collate feedback.
Can I just add something, Bill?
Yeah.
We came up with the first two questions on there. We needed a numerical so that we can potentially say 9 out of 10, 9 out of 90% of Human Givens clients would recommend Human Givens, and 90% or 95% of clients would recommend their Human Givens therapist. So that's why the numerical was in there, so that we can use statistics.
Yeah.
And then the next two boxes are for the wording that we can use on the websites. And then I talked to somebody who's in the NHS or who works with the NHS a lot, and she said their new buzzword is impact. So we might be coming up with a question that says, what impact has this had on you? So that it can be directly used when you're working with NHS. So that's what we're trying to do, is give you data when you get into these conversations, if you get into them. Yeah.
So as I say, this is like literally, work in the very early stages of development here. But we wanted to put it out there to you guys and get your reaction. And Julie is working with me on sort of collating all of this and coming up with something that we hope. Lauren, I can see your hand up. You're the one who knows how to do that technology with the hand up. So Flick away.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Bill. One on that form. I think it's excellent, that idea. And I'm just wondering if you could add another field of, would you refer any of your friends to me? I don't know if that's cheeky, but when
Yeah,
people are
that
giving
is the second question is actually, if an opportunity presented itself, how likely are you to recommend your human guidance therapist?
but would they name them? In other words, they Mary Smith.
And can I have their phone number and bank account details as well?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I think we need to keep it fairly generic in here. You know, maybe when you read the response that the feedback they've given you, you might call them up then and sort of say, you know.
Yeah, and the only other thing is there's a number of questions that are cropping up on the comments box around core YP and young people and PCL5 or whatever. Is there a PCL5 form for young people? I think that's the question.
No, is the answer to that. That's easy. Next.
The other one is
YP core is to replace core 10, basically.
A bit of confusion around what you're asking us to do. Are we meant to be doing PHQ9 instead of core 10?
Yes.
Or do you want us to do both of them? You want to drop core 10?
I mean, I'll tell you the God's honest truth. If we had GAD7 PHQ9 and core 10, even for 100 cases, we would be able to show that core 10 measures very similarly to GAD7 and PHQ9. And then retrospectively, it would help to validate all of our data for the last 12 years. However, I need to calm down. I think, you know, that's a step too far. I mean, maybe, first of all, to be honest, it probably won't add a huge amount more by doing that, because if we have data on some hundreds of clients with GAD7 and PHQ9, I think that in itself will demonstrate, look, this stuff is helping a lot of people, and therefore it's obvious that the earlier data is just as valid, you know. So because of the load on the client, I mean, if you go, you know, I'm saying core 10 replaced by GAD7 and PHQ9, that's 6 more items for the client to fill in. If you add another 10, now you're 16 more items, and maybe you want PRN 14 and stuff. It's starting to get heavy, you know. So I would say, yeah, let's think about GAD7 and PHQ9 as a replacement for core 10, and PCL5 as a replacement for the impact of event scale.
Bill, can I ask?
Yeah,
can I
sure.
Interject? It's going back to the cherry picking and the fact that your research, well, you're maybe criticised for having private patients and therefore privileged middle class, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And obviously then you brought in the PTSD resolution. Obviously that's a charity, and so we're supporting people that don't come into that cohort. I just wanted to also add that I have about 10 Red Poppy Company clients. And these are teachers, frontline workers. I've got paramedic, an ambulance call centre worker, firemen, and teachers.
Yeah.
So, and they're getting my services through the Red Poppy Company, which is purely HG as well, like PTSD resolution.
Sure.
Is there some way that then I do identify them as being, I put RPC on the tracker to say that's where they've been referred from. That's my little code.
Yeah.
But it would really help you to know that the data being generated isn't from privileged middle class people that can afford to have therapy, that there is some really good, really important stuff coming through.
That's an absolutely great point. And in fact, there may be others amongst you who work in environments that are not all private. Stuart's an example. So Stuart, talk away. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, just the same thing. It's so the charity that I set up, Mindset, has got a contract with the Princess Trust in Glasgow, and the vast majority of people that we see are Princess Trust young people. So the fee is covered by the Princess Trust. young person's not paying anything themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, if there's just a way to separate out. I suppose it depends how pedantic people that are asking for the information are wanting to be about where's it all come from and who are these people. And
exactly. And in fact, the 5-year data paper that was written had 3,500 cases, but they were from all over the place. There were private clients, but there were a lot of from different charities. There was some work, Ian Caldwell's work at the time, in Hartlepool Mind, a charity again. There were people doing trauma work with insurance cases and stuff like that. So Stuart already actually has a login that what I've done is partitioned it off, if you like, and Carmen is here. Carmen, you've done this. Could you just say something about the different ways you've done this?
Yeah, well, I've just started with the Frontline 19 as a volunteer, so that's working directly with NHS staff and people, and also Winter Night Shelter. So I'm working again using Pragmatic Tracker with homelessness and people that come through the service through the Winter Night Shelter.
Yeah. So what I've done in the case of Stuart and Carmen is I've set up separate logins. So Carmen has a login for her private work, but then she has a separate login for the night shelter and a separate login again for the other work. Stuart's the same. So I'm able to do this for you. So I've already forgotten who was talking to. It was just Katrina. Yeah, you were talking about Red Poppy. Now, I have to tell you about Red Poppy. I know Keith very, very well. And I was actually talking to him the other day. And years ago, when we used to use CoreNet, I had them doing exactly what you were talking about, trying to get and I said to him, Keith, you should have stayed with me because now you'd have 10 years of data about Red Poppy outcomes. But he didn't at the time. But I think it's a great point, Katrina. So I can do that if you're doing a significant amount of Red Poppy work. I can create a separate login that would just be Red Poppy.
That would be amazing, and it would be really useful for me as well to separate my private clients with the Red Poppy one. I would like to be able to see that progress.
You'd be able to see them separately. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
Well,
right.
Sorry, just to add to that, I know you can add layers and layers and layers of how much information you want to gather, but I wonder if there's any value in adding a tick box of, is it a private client or are they paying themselves? Does it come through another agency? I wonder if that's useful.
Funding source, something like that. Yeah. We do that for other organizations. Someone else has something there.
Yeah, Bill, I'm wondering how scalable your current solution is, though, as people take on more and more charities and, different logins.
Well, let me say, I mean, the point is with that, if, in an ideal world, Red Poppy would have a contract with us for Pragmatic Tracker and have their own instance of Pragmatic Tracker, right? It's only because it's you guys that I'll come up with all these formulas for ways of doing this to stay within the HCI.
But I'm just wondering, practically, if I was to do, I'm not there yet, but if I had private clients and resolution clients and Red Poppy clients, wouldn't it be easier to have one login and I have a tick box to say it's, it's resolution, private client or whatever? And that means you don't have to set up separate instances.
Yeah. In fact, I was only thinking of that there as you were talking earlier on. The disadvantage of that, though, is that you can't, like Katrina was saying, you can't then see, you can't filter just down to the clients that are Red Poppy, not from the profile, you can't do it that way. So you can't just say, just show me the clients who are Red Poppy or show me the clients who are PTSD resolution, So they have to be distinct entities, if you like. So it's not that difficult to do for me to set up. I mean, Carmen, you just requested that there 10 days ago or something, and I probably had it done before you were finished writing your email, more or less. So it's quite straightforward to do. Yeah, guys, it's 6 minutes gone past. So the time has whirled by. Was I finished? Let me just quickly go back over here. I think I was. So that was the testimonial thing, which you'll hear more of. So yeah, the last point was to think about testimonials. Just dates for your diary. I'm not going to do sessions at the end of March because it's very, very close to Easter, and my son's moving into a new house in London, and he wants my help. So I'll be out of commission for that week anyway. But so the next sessions like this will be the end of April. Now, if there are some people who are pretty new in here, you may have been on my recent 90-minute session we did a couple of weeks ago for newcomers. That was very successful, and we're doing a second one on Saturday, April the 17th at 10:30. It's a small charge for that of £12 per person, but that is really helpful if you're fairly new to all of this. And so if there's anyone there interested in that, and if you want to come to that and you weren't at the first one, I recorded the first one, so I can send you that anyway, you know. So that's that. And then the next one of these will be Wednesday, the 28th of April, 5:30, and Thursday, the 29th at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much for doing the registration process. That was far easier for me because you just went in and did it, and I was able to see who everybody was. So that's just much, much easier for me. So thank you very much for that. So are there any final points or anything like that? You're all okay? I hope all of this made sense to you and gives you something to think about. And we'll talk, no doubt, about it in the future.
Sorry,
So,
Bill, Joe's got her hand
Bill, I
up.
had one little question.
Sorry,
Sorry,
Jo.
I had
Yeah,
one little
sure.
question. Thank you. It was literally, I'm so used to using it on autopilot that I'm worried I'll forget to use the PHQ-9, the GAD-7 and the PCL-5. Would there be any way you can literally just outline them in red for about a month for you know, dumb cops like me to actually remember to take them?
No.
All
Sorry,
right,
Jo.
I'll stick with my post-it note and hope for the best.
Sorry, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry. Katrina, did you have another point? Your hand is up. No, you're okay. Right. Everyone all right?
Yeah.
Got everything? Okay. Guys, thank you very, very much. It was great to have you along, and I'll have a lovely Easter. Hey, we're coming out of lockdown, slowly but surely. I had my vaccine today, by the way. I feel great. Okay, thank you very much. All the best, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.